Om Agyantimidandasya Jnananjanat Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Vansha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patithanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahabodhanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvaishe Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My great thankfulness to all of you for being here tonight. Swamiji, please accept my gratitude. We were discussing Lord Chaitanya's tour of South India. This morning he just embraced Vasudev, who had acute leprosy, and not only cured his physical disease, but awakened ecstatic love of God within his heart. The Lord carried on. From Kurmakshetra, he visited so many places that the biographers tell us that they cannot even explain all the places. From small villages to very, very holy cities. He went to Tirupati, to Kanchipuram, to Malakarjuna, to Srirangam, Tanjore, Ahovalam. He came to Madurai. And while Lord Chaitanya was in Madurai, he was doing what he did everywhere. He was inducing everyone to chant the holy names of the Lord, Kirtan. There's a very, very famous temple of Ram and Sita there. And Lord Chaitanya went there to do worship. And after he left, just a little ways from Madurai, on the banks of the Kritamala River, he met Ramdas Vipra. Very, very simple, very austere, renounced person who was a devotee of Sri Ram. He invited Lord Gauranga to his home for lunch. Because Lord Chaitanya, it wasn't that he was staying in hotels or anything like that. He was a Swami in the old traditional method. He just traveled by foot, barefoot, slept under trees or on riverbanks, or if someone invited him to her home, if they lived a very pure and clean lifestyle, whoever they may have been, he would accept the invitation, usually for not more than one night. So he invited him, please come for lunch. I'll start preparing immediately. Go for darshan of some temples. So he came back, and he took prasad, the lunch, and then the Lord asked, now you should take. And Ramdas Vipra, he revealed his heart. He said, no, I cannot eat. In fact, how could I even live knowing what I know? What do you mean? He said, the most worshipable object of all of my heart's love, Sita, has been abducted by that Rakshasa, cruel-hearted Ravana. And he kept her at the Ashok Van in Sri Lanka for 1 year, knowing that that evil Ravana has taken my Sita even for a moment. It's causing such pain to my heart. Why am I living? This was how absorbed he was in reading the scripture. It's not that when he was reading philosophy or stories, he was just academically trying to memorize it so he can present it to others. It wasn't that he was just reading in such a way to get a good historical perspective or some symbolic messages of how to live a better life. That may have all been there. But he was so deeply absorbed that he was literally living what he was reading. And Lord Caitanya could see he was so sincere. How could I live when Sita was abducted by Ravana? So I'm going to use this passage to speak something about Sita, because today is her appearance day. A very summarized idea of who Sita is and how devotion to Sita relates to us in our everyday life, and how important it means to the whole world. Ram and Lakshman were taken to the forest by Vishwamitra Muni, a very great sage, who Ram actually accepted as a guru. In order to teach the world, Krishna tells in Gita, Yadyad acharati sresthas tadhat evetarojana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. What great people do, common people imbibe that spirit and follow their example. Like that. It's like a very sweet exclamation point. I was recently speaking to some people on my way here, actually. It was pretty inconceivable how I got here. But we were talking about charity, about goodness, and how the big people, the big industrialists, the business people, the politicians, the academic people, what to speak of religious leaders, what their values are is very much what the younger generation are going to consider to be values. Therefore, Krishna explains that if you're going to take a position of a leader, even a mother or a father is very much a leader of the children. Our first and foremost responsibility is not just to get some money to give them food and clothes and toys and all of that stuff. That's there. But the greatest responsibility is the example we set. And many of us have the experience that if our parents actually try to imbibe by their example, not just by what they say with their words, but by their lifestyle, real values, then even if we're teenagers and we rebel and do all that kind of mischief, those values still remain deep in our heart and really give us an opportunity to make right choices. So the Supreme Lord, when he appears in this world as Bhagavan, he teaches by example. When he's in that role, sometimes he does things that just nobody else could do. So Ram accepted Vishwamitra as guru and would serve him in very simple ways and inquire submissively into understanding higher truths. So Vishwamitra took them to Mithila. And there they were greeted by a king named Janak. And the king honored Vishwamitra and said, "You are a great sage. As a king, I am just your servant. Tell me, how can I please you and how can I serve you?" Vishwamitra said, "I have brought Ram and Lakshman to see the bow." Oh, the bow. And then he explained how this bow, it was such a gigantic, powerful, incredible bow. It was Shiva's personal bow that he used. And then Lord Shiva gave it to the Devas, and the Devas gave it to my forefather, Devarata, Janak Maharaj said. And that bow has been in my family dynasty generation after generation. I wanted to perform a sacrifice. That means a ritualistic worship for the purpose of bringing about prosperity physically, emotionally, and spiritually for everyone in my kingdom. And to begin the sacrifice, the field of the area where the puja was going to take place, it is the custom that the king plow the area with a golden plow. As I was plowing, the earth turned over, and out from Mother Earth came a beautiful little baby girl. She had a very light, golden white complexion, large eyes like lotus flowers. Her every limb was so soft and delicate and beautiful. I picked up this little baby girl and entrusted her in the arms of my wife, the queen, and we raised her as our own daughter. Because she was born from the earth, from under a plow, we gave her the name Sita. For the whole kingdom of Mithila, everyone loved Sita. Whatever she did was the news of the whole kingdom. If she rolled over, that was the talk of the whole kingdom. Because everyone considered her their own daughter. Such love. One day when Sita was a little girl, this massive bow that even hundreds of men at a time cannot lift, she was just dusting around the house. Nothing was even dirty, but just little girl. She was hardly 4 or 5 years old. She was playing like her mother, and she was dusting around the house. And she went to the altar where the bow was. And with her delicate little tiny childlike hands, she lifted the bow, dusted under it, and placed it back effortlessly. I was behind a pillar, and I watched her. I saw her do this. And I made a vow that it will take the person who could lift this bow and string it to marry Sita. The news spread all over the world, and the greatest kings and princes and warriors, heroes, even devas were coming. But nobody could even separate the bow, even the width of a hair from its altar. And this went on for years. Will there ever be anyone who will marry Sita? Is there any such hero in this world? And Janak was looking at Ram, and he fell in love with Ram. He said, if there's anyone that I want to lift that bow, it's this prince who is with you, Vishwamitra Ram. Vishwamitra Muni said, bring the bow. It was on a cart with 8 wheels, and 300 warriors were straining and straining to pull it. That's how big and heavy this bow was. It was in a big case. The case was lifted. And meanwhile, so many of the people of the kingdom heard, because they had seen Ram walking around the day before. And they all so much wanted Ram to marry Sita. Everyone was looking. It was in a beautiful assembly hall, like a little stadium. And in the balcony, Sita was standing. As soon as she saw Ram, her heart overflooded with love. According to the scriptures and acharyas, Ram and Sita are eternally living in their spiritual abode beyond this material creation of dualities. Ram is the supreme object of love. Sita is the supreme abode of love. Ram is the Shaktiman, the possessor of all potencies. And Sita is the primary source of all potency. She is the primary potency of the Lord, the Ananda Shakti. She is the eternal consort of the Lord. In the Vaishnava tradition, we understand that the absolute truth is one. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shakti Rashmat. But that one absolute truth is eternally manifested in 2 forms. Lakshmi Narayan, Radha Krishna, Parvati Shiva, Sita Ram. All of these feminine potencies are of the same tattva, the same spiritual truth, the same identity, manifesting in different ways. The love between Sita Ram, Radha Krishna, is the origin of all love. Janmadya Shayataha, the Brahma Sutra tells that the Absolute is from whom everything emanates. So love emanates. And one of the most important things about love in this world, which is a place of duality, and it is a reflection of the real truth, is the love of relationships. The origin of relationship, an intimate, ecstatic, infinite love in relationship, is the love of Radha Krishna or Sita Ram. They're the same. So Ram descended into this world, and similarly his Shakti, his Hladini Shakti, his pleasure potency, Sita, appeared in different places. And Sita was simply waiting for Ram to come. But they were playing the roles like human beings. And when the Lord plays the roles of human beings, they really feel it. It's not just like some dramatic show of an actor. They get totally absorbed in it. Sita looked at Ram as he was walking toward the bow. And she saw that this bow, it was massive. And it was so beautiful. It was made by Vishwakarma of the demigods for Shiva. It was carved. It had diamonds and rubies and jewels. It was just so hard looking. And Ram looked so soft and so gentle. Would Ram be able to even lift it? There was total silence. Everyone in that assembly house was praying at the core of their hearts for Ram to have Sita as his wife. But is it possible? Sita's heart was pulsating in ecstatic anxiety. Ram circumambulated the bow and looked at his guru and asked permission. Vishwamitra nodded his head, yes, do it. Then Ram gazed upon Janak and said, now I will try to meet your test and lift this bow. Very slowly, he put his hand in the center of the bow. By this time, there were tears of anticipation filling Sita's eyes. Her hairs were standing on end all over her, from every pore of her body. Ram lifted the bow above his head. There was a total outburst of wonder in everybody's there was He lifted it above his head, way up, and just to test the weight of it, he threw it in the air and caught it. Now he had to string the bow. He took the string, he put it on the top, he bent the bow, he put the string on the bottom. It was strung. He did it. But he didn't end there. He pulled the string, and the bow went back. Pull, 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 until the bow was like a circle, and then the bow broke. It was so thunderous that it created an effect like a massive earthquake. Everything shook. Shiva's bow was broken. It was such a thunderous experience that all the thousands of people in that assembly hall fell unconscious, except for Janak, Ram, Lakshman, Vishwamitra Muni, and Sita. And when everyone came to consciousness again, Sita was just weeping in happiness. But she was so shy, she was just waiting for her father to call her. And King Janak called her down, and she came down with her very dearest friends. And she looked at Ram, and Ram looked at her. When their two gazes met each other, the infinite love of their hearts merged together through their glances. And Sita looked down at his feet again, and then looked up, and she had a golden flower garland, the garland of victory. And Janak gave a motion, And Sita placed it around the neck of Ram. And everyone in the kingdom celebrated by chanting the holy names. The marriage was arranged. Dasarat and all the senior people of Ayodhya came to Mithila. And then Sita returned to Ayodhya. And some of us know the story, how after some time Caitanya, who was a loving mother for Ram, she somehow or other became infected by bad association, and her love for Ram corrupted into envy. And by her influence, Ram was to be banished to the forest for 14 years. He told Sita that you stay with my father and mother, and in 14 years I will come back to you. Sita said, I'm going with you. Ram said, impossible, Sita. It's not possible. You are a princess. Your whole life you have been protected by fortresses and palaces and armies. If you go to the forest with me, you will be subjected to tigers and lions. You will be subjected to the freezing cold winters, the burning hot summers. You will be subjected to massive monsoon rains. And there won't even be a tent. You'll just be living on the ground in the forest with me. You have been raised eating the finest foods and wearing the nicest clothes. You will have to wear the bark of trees and eat whatever roots and herbs we can find in the ground. No, you cannot go with me. It breaks my heart, the thought of it. Sita, from her heart, she spoke, my beloved, love is where real shelter is, not in these things. To be with you, even hell will be better than heaven. To be without you, heaven will be worse than hell. What is the use of Ayodhya for me without my service and my loving devotion to you? I'm going with you. Ram presented very, very strong arguments why she could not. And this dialogue is many pages in the Ramayana. Finally, Sita explained, when I married you, according to the ritual, my father made a vow that I would be with you as your faithful associate and consort through good times and bad times, through prosperity and hardship, through easy times and very difficult, challenging times. Love is not about doing things when they're easy. Love is dedication unconditionally. My father made this vow. You have no right, Ram, to make my father a liar. I am going with you. Ram smiled and said, come. And she went with him to the forest. But before going, Caitanya already had tree bark clothes made for Ram, Sita, and Lakshman. And Ram just put it on. He didn't care. But Princess Sita, she looked at this tree bark and was really confused. She said, how do you put this on? And Ram had to start putting the tree bark around Sita's tender body. At that point, Vasishta Muni and Dasarat Maharaj, people were weeping and crying and cursing Caitanya. How could you do this to these loving people who love you. How could you do this to her? But Sita was happy. And eventually, they went to a very holy place called Chitrakoot. Have any of you been to Chitrakoot? Please raise your hand. Chitrakoot is like the Vrindavan of Ram Leela. Because Vrindavan is a very, very simple place of spontaneous love. Dwarka is a very kingly place in Krishna's Leela. Ayodhya is a great kingdom, but Chitrakoot was a simple forest with a beautiful forest mountain on the banks of the Mandakini Ganga River. And there were just sages and rishis living there. Lakshman, Ram's brother, built a little hut made out of straw for Ram and Sita to live in. And Lakshman himself he stayed up. He didn't sleep for 14 years. He guarded Ram and Sita day and night. And Ram and Sita, they just lived such a simple life. Sita would go out and pick flowers in the forest and make garlands and give them to the Brahmins and sages for their puja. She would bring them water. She would get herbs and fruits from the trees and bring them to the saints who were living in there. Valmiki Muni's ashram was not far. They would go and listen to him giving discourses. It was such a simple life. Sita told Ram that this Chitrakoot forest is so beautiful. This is thousands of times nicer than Ayodhya. In Ayodhya, we would have so many responsibilities as the prince and the princess, and we were about to be coronated to soon be the king and the queen. Here, we could just live together and just exchange the most intimate love together, heart to heart, and together serve all the great devotees of the Lord. This is the most beautiful experience. I think Kaikeyi really gave a blessing to us. The citizens of Ayodhya came with Bharat to try to convince them to come back. But Ram was very true to his word. And later, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman moved to a place called Panchabati, which is actually not far from Mumbai. If you come to visit us in Mumbai, we could arrange you to go to Panchavati. It's a very special place. Ram, Sita, and Lakshman were living there. There's a mountain called Brahmagiri, and that is the very source of the Godavari River, one of the holiest of the holy rivers of India. The ashram of Gautam Rishi in Ahalya. There's a place called the Kalaram Mandir, where Ram and Sita were living. There's also a Kumbh Mela there every 12 years in Nasik. Prayag, Haridwar, Ujjain, and Nasik are the four places of Kumbh Mela. There's the Godavari River and the Kapila River, and where they meet, there is a Kumbh Mela. Ram and Sita were living there. It was there that Ravana, he somehow or other, through one of his mystic friends who assumed the form of a golden deer, allured Ram and Lakshman to a distant place. And then he took the guise of a saintly sadhu, knowing that that was Sita's weakness. She loved to serve saintly people. And when she came to give him some fruits, he grabbed her and took her away to Sri Lanka. Who is Sita? Let us speak the tattva, or the truth, about the pleasure potency, the Shakti of the Lord. according to the Bhakti or Vaishnav scriptures and traditions, acharyas, that beyond this Brahmanda, or this universe, is the cosmic manifestation, which is all included in the Mahatattva, which is the entire material energy. Beyond that is the spiritual sky, the all-pervading Brahman. And according to the Vaishnav scriptures, within that Brahman there are spiritual planets called Vaikuntha, where Bhagavan eternally resides, performing his beautiful pastimes. Sita has many manifestations in the spiritual realm. Lakshmi, Radha, Parvati. And one manifestation of Sita, the goddess of fortune, within the creation is Bhumi. Bhumi is the goddess presiding over the earth. For those who understand this, the ecology, the environment, the earth is Bhagavan's Shakti. And she's the mother. We say Mother Earth or Mother Bhumi, because she provides everything for all of her children. We're like little infants. That little child is probably calling for her mother or his mother. Because when you're an infant child, you're totally dependent on your mother for protection, for food, for everything. And in the same way, whether we're kings, whether we're champion athletes, whether we're prime ministers or presidents, or whether we're little sadhus, or anything, we are all 100% completely dependent on Mother Earth. We're like her babies. If she doesn't supply air, if she doesn't supply water, if she doesn't supply food, she supplies our body. Our body is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. Everything we have. We cannot live. This is our mother. The Vedic literatures and other spiritual traditions also explain that we have to be grateful and live in harmony and respect for the mother that is providing everything for us at all times. And it is considered a dharma in a very serious way to exploit our mother. And the representative of that mentality is Ravana. Sita was born of the earth. Later on, when she disappeared from this world, she entered back into the earth. Her expansion is Mother Earth. Ravana wanted to take the earth for his own selfish, egoistic purposes to enjoy. His goal was to exploit Sita. Sita is the property of Ram. The Gita tells Yat karoshi yat ashnasi yat johoshi didasi yat yat tapasyasi konti yat tat kurushva madarpanam. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Spiritual vision from the perspective of the Gita is to see everything as the property of God and use everything in a way that samsiddhir haritoshanam, that the Lord is pleased. And that's where Hanuman comes in. Hanuman was willing to engage in the most incredible pastimes of devotion to bring Sita back to Ram. And Ravana, he was willing to risk everything to take Sita away from Ram. And in a very practical, day-to-day, symbolic message that this gives us. Are we being influenced to follow Hanuman or to follow Ravana? Do we want to exploit the resources of Sita, the earth, or do we want to use them in devotion? There's an old saying that within every heart are two dogs. The Ravana, bad dog, and a good dog. The Gita explains in one chapter that we all have a divine and demoniac nature in our conditioned illusion state. The divine nature, humility, generosity, love, peace, desire to serve, honesty, cleanliness, and the bad dog, envy, anger, hate, arrogance. We have these two dogs trying to get our attention. Do any of you have that experience? And sometimes that bad dog really barks loud. And the good dog sometimes is we have the choice at every moment whether we're going to follow the impulses of envy and arrogance and greed, or whether we're going to follow the impulse of goodness. Which dog wins that fight? The one we choose to feed. Dharma, yoga, very much means to control the mind in such a way that we make the right choices to always be feeding the good dog and not giving anything to that bad dog. In other words, instead of following the Ravana, we take the inspiration from Hanuman, selfless loving devotion. In this way, what is the cause of the pollution in the ecology? It ultimately comes down to the pollution in the ecology of the heart. When we have this pollution of greed, we could make any kind of law, but it's not going to be sustainable unless we take responsibility to clean our hearts. That's what yoga is. The process of cleaning our hearts, helping us to live in harmony with nature, with God, and with each other, with purity. In Bhakti, through chanting this beautiful kirtans and through seva, and through hearing transcendental knowledge, our ways of cleansing the heart. In this way, respecting and honoring the ecology, who is the manifestation of Mother Earth, Sita, is the way we show our love for God. So this Brahmin in Madurai, he couldn't even eat. It's not that he was fasting, it's that he just had no appetite because Sita was stolen by Ravana. Lord Caitanya explained to him that actually Sita is completely spiritual, transcendent, beyond the dualities of material existence. Sita cannot be touched by an evil, envious person like Ravana. When Ravana came to get Sita. Sita manifested a shadow form of herself for him to take. A Maya Sita. Now we're getting into philosophy here. There's two types of Maya. There's Yoga Maya, the spiritual energy, and Mahamaya, the material energy. They're of the same source. My guru Srila Prabhupada said, what is the difference between Yoga Maya and Mahamaya? It's the same energy, but manifesting either in spiritual or material context. Just like you have an electric current. And the same current is in a refrigerator is creating cold. And in a heater, it's creating heat. So within the context of material energy, Mahamaya creates illusion. And within the context of spiritual that it's the spiritual energy that actually unites us with God. So that Yogamaya Sita manifested as Mahamaya, and Ravana took. Lord Chaitanya was explaining this. And the Brahmin, he said, all right, I'll eat. And he ate. And then Lord Chaitanya left that place. And eventually he came to Rameshwaram, one of the pitas, or the high seats of Sri Shankaracharya for South India. Rameshwaram's a very special place. How many of you have been to Rameshwaram? It's almost the same people raising their hands every time. Oh, I would love to just talk about Rameshwaram. We were just there last year and we spoke for hours and hours. That's where Hanuman and the Vanaras built the bridge across to Sri Lanka. So the Lord was there and he went to the temple of Rameshwaram, Lord Shiva, and he performed kirtan and offered his love. And while he was there, he saw some very, very pure Brahmins reading from the Kurma Purana. So the Lord sat to listen. And incredible, they read a passage from the Kurma Purana describing exactly what we just described. How when Sita saw Ravana coming, she manifested a Maya Sita. And she entered in the protection of Agni and Parvati, and how Ravana took that Maya Sita. Now the Maya Sita is also Sita, but in the material context. It's a little subtle. So Lord Chaitanya told these Brahmins, tear out that page. Because this Ramdas Vipra, if I don't show him the original manuscript, he may not completely believe me. But I want him to be happy and eat every day. So they copied the text and gave him the original, and he brought it back to Ramdas Vipra. And Ramdas Vipra read it. And he cooked an incredible feast for Lord Chaitanya to celebrate Sita, reunion with Ram. And then he ate the feast also. The real principle of this story that's so important to understand, though, is to honor with devotion the potential of the spiritual sub-value of everything that exists. Bhumi is an expansion of Sita. She is non-different than Sita. Lakshmi. She's providing everything for us. In the path of bhakti, we see every leaf, every flower, every tree, every brick, whatever. We see it as gifts of the divine. And we see that these apparent things, if we use them in a spirit of devotion, in harmony with the will of God, then we are appreciating the spiritual nature of this creation. What appears to be an illusion, by utilizing according to this principle, it liberates us forever from illusion. My Guru Dev Srila Prabhupada used to say, he'd talk in a microphone. He'd say, we could use this microphone to sing romantic songs and induce people toward that, material romantic songs. Or we could use this same microphone for political rallies. You know, Hitler used microphones for evil purposes. The same microphone we could use to elevate, enlighten people's consciousness and awaken love of God in people. So everything has a potential of spiritual or material. A knife. A thief will use a knife to kill someone. A surgeon will use the same knife to save a person's life. Is the knife good or bad? It's neutral. All the things of this world, including our own bodies, our minds, our intelligence, all the things made out of the combinations of earth, water, fire, air, ether, that even technology and science, education, it could be used constructively, like Hanuman. He had a club. Ravana also had a club. And they were fighting each other with clubs. But Hanuman was using that club as spiritual energy to rescue Sita for the pleasure of Ram. And Ravana was using that club to support his exploitation. So bhakti is to see the spiritual potential in everything and utilize everything accordingly. And that is the bhakti understanding of Sita, the goddess of fortune, the goddess of blessings, the source of all love. And Lord Caitanya taught us how to make that connection. And tomorrow we will continue. Thank you very much.